Welcome to the second episode of Code Blue SEO. I'm Margaret Pacheco, and my very special guest today is Andrew Askins. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, great to chat. Great to catch up. I'm excited to talk today.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you on here. We actually met through a mutual cybersecurity client, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Shout out to Nomic Networks.
Yeah, I keep calling them, messing up and calling them Sentinel. I can't quite get the name change to stick in my head, but I try to stick to Nomic when I can.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were Sentinel for 20 plus years, and then we all of a sudden went through a branding change, which necessitated, working on a new website. And I mean, it was.
Yeah. How was that experience? How often do you do full rebrands and have to deal with all of the implications of that for SEO clients?
Well, not very often, actually. This one was a pretty big project where my role was mainly as for SEO strategy and working with your partner, Sean Sund, who does a wonderful job with cybersecurity website development. But I mainly did the SEO strategy and then all the boots on the ground tactics for the new website. It was a very successful launch. We maintained the domain authority. We didn't have, any sort of lag in visits or clicks or conversions or anything like that. So I was very, very pleased with it.
Love that. Does that just come down to getting the technical details right of like switching over the DNS and everything?
Planning. Yeah, it's just so much planning. And when you get to work with someone who is as SEO knowledgeable as Sean, and and of course it makes it so much easier because there are so many devs I've worked with who couldn't care less about SEO. They leave it till the last, and it takes a good bit of pre-planning, but especially when you're looking at a site migration or a relaunch or something like that. So yeah, it's a long process.
I'm sure.
So let's talk about you a little bit. You bootstrapped a really successful product development company called Crit, which
really successful is generous, but I'll take it. Thank you.
Very successful according to your customers, and you exited a couple of years ago, and now you're off building new product.
Yeah.
Would you, is it safe to say you're a serial entrepreneur?
Yeah, I guess so. I think one of the best parts for me about the exit was realizing that I'm just a founder through and through. I started my agency while I was still in college, so I had never really been an employee. And there was always this nagging question in the back of my head of like, when things got hard at the agency, as they always do, when things got stressful, I was like, should I just go get a job? Like, would I be happier working for someone else and letting someone else worry about all this? And I can definitively say no, I would not be.
No, I would agree with that.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm just a control freak or what.
Yeah, same. Well, we have a problem with authority, maybe taking orders.
Yep.
I don't know.
All of the above.
Maybe both. Yeah. So tell me about what you're up to now. Tell me about the new products that you're developing, and specifically one that I'm most interested in and really was very fortunate to get in on the beta for MetaMonster.
Yeah.
But how did you go from product development over to SEO?
So I was looking for a new product idea. I was looking for something to start, get off the ground. And my background is product development, product strategy. But for the agency, I was doing all of our sales and marketing. And a lot of what that boiled down to was content marketing. We put a lot of time and effort into our blog. I think for services companies in particular, thought leadership, as much as I don't love that word, is like one of the most effective growth strategies. It's not always easy to immediately see the results. It takes a lot of time. You can't always, marketing attribution is, an illusion at best.
Yeah, crazy hard. Yeah.
But so I was doing our content marketing with a couple of great freelance writers, and I was just always really bad at the little stuff that you need to be good at to do better in search engine rankings. Like I never could, whether it was remember or be bothered to like insert internal links into the stuff I was writing, write decent meta description, like all the little tedious grunt work that you just have to do. It's not fun. No one wants to do it, but you got to do it. And so I'd always wanted that to just be done for me. I was like, can I just like write and then like let the internal links magically appear? As I'm not necessarily an early adopter. I'm like maybe a second wave adopter. And so I'm often a little skeptical of tech trends. And so everyone was hyping up AI. Everyone was getting excited about ChatGPT. And I was like, I don't know. I've seen this dance before. I'm gonna sit back for a minute and wait to see if there's anything here. And then it just felt like there was, the models were getting better. They were hallucinating less. It felt like there was something real happening that wasn't just a bunch of crypto bullshit. Sorry, if I don't know if I'm allowed to curse. And it felt like the perfect technology to do this thing that I'd always wanted to do, because the power of LLMs is their ability to process text and process natural language. And so I actually originally wanted to start on this March of last year and kind of talked myself out of it. I was like, I think it's going to be too hard. I don't know if I'm ready to build something like that. And so I worked on something else for a little while. It didn't go anywhere, and I needed to pick something new to work on. And I brought in one of my longtime partners, the guy I started the agency with, and we were looking at all these ideas we had. And we started looking at like the reactions we'd gotten from the early MetaMonster research I'd done. And we were like, oh, I think there's something here. And I'm not an SEO expert. I don't pretend to be. You know so much more than I do. And I need people like you around me to continue to teach me. But I'm an SEO enthusiast and an advocate. Like, when it works, it's just the perfect marketing system. You put value out into the world and you help the right people find that valuable content that you've created. You help them a little bit, and in return, they give you their attention and give you an opportunity to, educate them further and see if you all can be a good fit for each other. And so like I've always loved that.
That's a really romantic way of looking at SEO. Yeah, I should have you write my website copy. No, I've never heard it put in quite that romanticized type of way. That was exceptional.
Thank you. I mean, I'm an optimist to a fault. So yes, it can be gamed like everything else, and it has its dark sides. But when it's done right, it's perfect. It's better for everyone,
works, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it really does. It really works.
Yeah,
I love proving the naysayers wrong. Honestly,
absolutely.
Yeah. I love showing them how it's possible, and just kind of looking at the recognition in their face, like that's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Because everyone's got a different view of what SEO is, right? I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. So MetaMonster, the tool that we're building, it started with meta description generation. We were like, let's take the most tedious, simplest, like bottom of the barrel task, and like, let's just figure out how to get that decently right. And so the first version of the product could scrape your site, find missing page titles and meta descriptions, and then generate those for you. And importantly, feed your page content to the AI so that it wasn't just guessing. It was trying to use some of your content, your tone and voice a little bit. And so we launched that a couple of months ago. And the feedback we got was like, hey, there's something here, but I need it to do this. I need it to do that. I need it to do more. And our vision was always, this is just a starting point. And then we also started to work with the AI and see the challenges and the opportunities there, and realize that the way we designed the first version of the product, we were kind of limiting the AI and like removing its best features, its best assets. And so we've been in the process now of revamping the product into a much more flexible tool that we see as like, we're still truthfully struggling to figure out how to talk about it, but like I see it as like the interface where SEOs go to work with AI and to automate the parts of their process that they want to automate that can be automated while still having human input. Wow. And so we've built a spreadsheet-like interface that lets you run prompt templates, and we have 30 plus prompt templates that can do all sorts of these little tasks that take up time, but are kind of tedious and a pain, especially if you're dealing with any sort of scale. And yeah, that's what we're working on now. And so trying to find the right people who get excited about that.
I read where once you said your vision was to be an AI powered screaming frog.
Yeah.
And, I feel like this podcast is becoming one big giant advertisement for Screaming Frog, honestly. I talked with Michael Cottom in our first podcast, our first episode, and, he's a world-class technical SEO, and he was talking about Screaming Frog, and I thought, I'm going to have to get some ad revenue here from Screaming Frog. But it is a beloved tool of SEOs. It is way more complex for lay people to use. It is obviously an enterprise SEO tool, but we're all power users and huge fans. But what will MetaMonster do I think MetaMonster is great, not just for SEOs, but I think it's great for my target market, which is small and mid-sized businesses.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's a lot easier to use than, for example, a Screaming Frog for them. I really don't think that they would spend the time in a Screaming Frog. But in MetaMonster, yes. So what do you think about, the end user, the marketing manager in a small or mid-sized company who, doesn't have a lot of resources, is forced to do this stuff on their own, but has interest and intellect and, wants to do that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things I heard in that. One is like, who are we building MetaMonster for, and how do we think about building the right thing for that audience? And then the other thing is, Screaming Frog is this incredibly beloved tool that can do almost anything. Like, are you sure you want to compete with that? Like, is that a good idea? And truthfully, I don't know. My vision has been shifting a little bit. I don't know if calling us an AI-powered Screaming Frog is really right anymore. That was where I started, and there's still something to that. But to me, Screaming Frog is still primarily about analysis and in-depth, deep analysis for experts. And MetaMonster is more about creation and automation. And so, Screaming Frog helps you find everything and dive into all the nitty-gritty technical details, whereas MetaMonster helps you actually fix the basic stuff and get your fundamentals right. And then maybe do some analysis, but more like content level analysis, less deep technical nitty gritty analysis, and more like, all right, do I have the right keywords here? And keywords are obviously evolving. It may be topics and, chunks. Chunking is a thing we're having to, talk about now. So that's one piece is truthfully, I think our vision is evolving a little bit there. I don't see us replacing Screaming Frog. I see us being used as the next step after Screaming Frog, or to your point, potentially for people who Screaming Frog just doesn't work for, it's too much for. And we have a couple of alternatives pages, these MetaMonster versus so-and-so on our site. And the first one I wrote was Screaming Frog. And the thing I say up top is you can't replace Screaming Frog with us. Right. You can augment Screaming Frog with us, but you can't replace Screaming Frog with us. And I think that's going to stay true. So that's one piece. As for who we're building it for, our current hypothesis is still agencies, SEO agencies, SEO consultants like you. And the reason is that I feel like where the tool is now, at least for most small business owners, it would be kind of a one and done. You would use MetaMonster a little bit right away and get a big chunk of value in the first few weeks, first month. And then over time, that value would tank. It would go way down. Because once you've created your page titles and meta descriptions, once you've added structured schema to your site, once you've made sure your H1s are solid and you've got image alt text in place, and again, once you've done the basics, what next? And for agencies, you all are having to do the basics all over again all the time.
Right.
For a small business, maybe they're cranking out new content and we can help them do that well, although I don't want to become an AI content slop engine if we can avoid it.
Another plug-in.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. It just doesn't excite me. And so like maybe there's something else that we can do after the initial optimization and everything. But truthfully, I don't know what that is yet. And will small businesses be doing even that at a high enough volume to get value out of our tooling? I don't know yet. Like not everyone is as lazy as me. A lot of people are perfectly happy to add their internal links in Google Docs by themselves and don't need it automated if they're only writing one blog post a month. But so yeah, right now we think we're still going to be the most useful for freelancers and small agencies. But I don't know. That could change.
What models are you integrating into MetaMonster?
All of them. Yeah. The new tooling, again, the first version of the tool was just like one model. We hid all of the complexity away from you. You push a single button and we generate your page titles, your meta descriptions, identify primary keywords, just do it all for you. And that's great. That's cool because it's easy. It's just like, oh yeah, point and click. But what we saw was like the power of AI is its flexibility. Like, yes, it can process text and that's great. It can generate text, that's great. But really where it gets powerful is in its flexibility. You don't need a programmer anymore to come in and say, generate text this way. This is how I like it. All you have to do is talk to it. You have to write like you would write to a human and say, I don't want to use these words. I write in this tone. Or even better, you have the AI analyze your content, generate a voice and tone guide for you. You edit that a little bit, and then feed it right back into the next round of generation. And so it was all like too locked down. And so this new version that we're working on is going to be totally opened up. And that means you'll be able to customize the prompt. You'll be able to customize the model. You'll be able to customize the format of the output. This is something that's really cool. Like there's now tooling that can let you force the output to be in a certain structure, which helps make the output way more reliable.
Right.
Because this is one of the problems with AI right now, right? Reliability. You get kind of, you never know what you're going to get. And so there's now tooling to help you help work on that. And so this new version is going to have all of that. What we're trying to do though is figure out how to give people that without increasing the complexity too much. And so the way we think we're going to do that is with templates. So you come in, you crawl your site, your content's all there. You want to start optimizing, you click a button. Now, instead of just clicking the button once, it gives you a list of templates to choose from. You pick one of those templates and you can just run it. If you don't want to edit it, if you don't want to tell the AI to do something differently, cool, don't. Just run it and it'll do its job. If you want to leave the prompt engineering to us, that's fine. That's our job. We'll do that for you. If you want to get deeper and you've been using ChatGPT a bunch, you've played around with GPT for Sheets maybe, and you're like, I know what I like. I know how to get what I want out of ChatGPT. All right, cool. Write your own prompt or customize one of our templates. Take our template and then give it your own instructions. Make it better. Get better. So that's our current hypothesis is try to keep it simple for the people who want simple, but give you that extra little bit if you want to go deeper.
Yep. This podcast is mainly focused on SEO emergencies and SEO crises, and we talk about the different types of Code Blue scenarios. But the best way to avoid an SEO emergency is to not get into trouble in the first place, right?
Yeah.
That's our mantra. And to me, it's shocking how many companies, and again, I'll stick with end users here, but how many companies really don't understand the value of title tags and meta description and, the like. And any kind of tweaks to title tags can change the entire trajectory of your traffic, of your, clicks, of your conversions. The slightest tweaks. I mean, you can add the year at the end, or you can play around with how many characters you have, or you can play around with the positioning of the keywords, in the title. And all of a sudden could magically see all of a sudden, your traffic increase. And that's why I'll just put in a plug again for MetaMonster for end users, but that is testing. Testing's really important, right? So it's not one and done. It's, let's generate these title tags, let's generate these meta descriptions, put them out there. Let's look at the analytics and then let's test different things. So to me, and I don't know how many marketing managers in a small company or mid-sized company are going to have the time to spend testing those kinds of things. But someone who really has an interest in SEO, someone who's been trained maybe, because we go in and train marketing departments how to use SEO. To me, that's a perfect tool to use for testing. I mean, there are a lot of A/B testing, platforms out there, but very few actual SEO testing platforms.
Interesting.
There's one, SEOtesting.com, which is very, very good. But on a smaller scale for a small to mid-sized business who just really wants to keep trying different things, maybe doesn't have the budget for ads, and so it's all about organic. To me, that's a very valuable type of activity.
I love that. I hadn't thought about the testing angle before. We had a prospect that we were talking to who was thinking along the same lines. They were like, well, we haven't been updating our title tags on our blog posts because it's just not worth our time right now. It takes so much time. But if all of a sudden we could do it a lot faster, we might want to test that and see what we get. Reality, right, is that SEO is constantly evolving. What works today won't necessarily work 6 months from now, especially now more than ever. And so, being able to test and adapt, I think, is going to be really important. One other thing, just to say on that, it's really interesting. People talk about title tags because title tags have been relevant for a while, and meta descriptions, truthfully, haven't been for a while ago. They were, and then a shift happened. Google's technology got a lot smarter, and I've seen some recent research that says it's actually better if you leave the meta descriptions out entirely, because Google prefers to insert its own dynamically based on the search content. But I've seen some even more recent research that says that's changing with AI search. The way ChatGPT's search works, there's been some leaks of the underlying code within the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you've seen this.
I saw your post on it. It was really interesting.
Yeah. So the way it works is they're using Bing's index. So you've still got to show up in the indices. So you've still got to do the good SEO work. But then once you're there, ChatGPT is pulling the top 10 or so links and using the titles and descriptions to decide what to go deeper on. Yep. And it uses that decision to then decide what to filter back to the end user. And so suddenly, meta descriptions matter again, and structured schema matters even more than it has. It's been on the up, and it's taken on a whole new level of importance. But doing all this stuff manually is a pain.
Yeah. And I think, meta descriptions lost favor in the SEO community quite a while ago because 80% of the time Google would rewrite them anyway.
Right.
And so, what we do on a day-to-day basis is we have to decide what's the best use of our time.
Totally.
Right. What is going to bring us the biggest result for our work? And so we finally decided, meta descriptions, we'll write them, we'll have them, but Google will rewrite them anyway. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on them. But now you're right, with, digestible short snippets of content that the LLMs, really treasure. I agree with you. I think that you need to spend a lot more time on them. The other thing is I think from an end user perspective, they don't think about that meta description. They just think, oh, I got to put something in that blank field on the Excel file, right? So I'm just going to write anything. And it's the worst meta description. And I always say to them, do you really think someone's going to click on your link based on that description? And they're like, oh, is that what that's for? So it does serve a purpose. It's for user experience. Now it's for feeding the LLMs. I'm a huge proponent of schema markup and manual, very carefully written schema markup, not one that you get from turning on a plugin schema markup, which is really horrible. But so all of a sudden, all of these little components of what we do in SEO on a day-to-day basis, the things that you would say are really kind of boring, kind of must do things all of a sudden take on a whole lot more import now with the LLMs and the way that they're consuming them.
Absolutely. Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
So I just got off a call like an hour ago with a friend who is building her startup. And she says to me, I really think you should maybe talk a little bit less about SEO because like we're going to build our website and I don't even think we're going to worry about SEO. All we care about is AI search. And I was like, I don't know if I agree with that approach. What are you hearing from people? And like, what is your advice to people who feel that way?
There is such a dichotomy between if you're on social media and you're an SEO and you really pay attention to the SEO influencers, who there are some really excellent ones on, they've all moved over to LinkedIn now from X. But if you're in that world and you constantly hear the grifters talking about, GEO and
GEO, AEO, like LLMEO,
blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. You go and then you have the other more reasoned SEOs who say, look, it's SEO. It's a different dynamic. It's a different type of SEO, but it's still SEO. And then you talk to lay people, in the industry, end users, and they're not even close to getting into those kinds of discussions. It's like, first of all, how do I get into the LLMs? How do I get there? Wait a minute, what the heck is happening with my impressions and my clicks when my site gets into
the great
an
decoupling
AI overview? My God, I'm losing all my clicks. Right. That's the biggest SEO emergency right now for us. I mean, we're constantly fielding calls from people who see their data with the impressions going up and the clicks going down. And now they've taken to calling it on LinkedIn the crocodile effect. Right. Yeah. It's just big mouth. Some call it scissors. But, it's really interesting just how little folks in industry actually understand about the way that SEO works and how what you're doing in SEO actually feeds what's being done now in LLMs. Now we have to adapt because they do things differently. It is different than if you were just, optimizing for Google and Bing or DuckDuckGo or whomever, but it really requires an understanding. And right now people are just learning. Right. I mean, in the last 3 to 6 months, we've had just an enormous amount of new information come at us about how these things are listening, how they're learning, how they're digesting the information from individual websites. But bottom line is it's SEO. It's just an adaptation. Just like, I've been doing SEO for 10 years or more, and it's always been an adaptation.
Yeah. The algorithm changes on you every year, if not more often. And so you've got to learn and adapt and tweak.
They're selling AI optimization. They're selling, all these different services that it's just a marketing ploy. Oh, wait, I have a button for this. I do collect buttons. So hype button. It's definitely hype. It's in the hype stage now.
Yeah.
But as the models get better and as you're able to now try to understand where this traffic is coming from, because in GA4 you can see it now and you can run reports that will show you how much of your traffic's coming from ChatGPT or Claude, my personal favorite Claude, or Perplexity or whomever.
Why do we like Claude better? Claude just feels nicer.
Claude is like my big brother.
Yeah,
Claude understands me.
They have nailed their branding and managed to make the branding filter through to the product so well. It's incredible.
It's the prompts that you use. You can use the same prompt. And I do this all the time because I am a power user. I use it across ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Claude. And the Claude has by far the most reasoned really understanding of the prompt than any of them to me. I mean, it's my personal preference, right? But I hear a lot of people talking about how they love Claude. Everybody seems to love Claude. But from a content standpoint, you can't beat it, honestly. I mean, I do a lot of coding and things, because I'm not a coder. So maybe I'm a vibe coder. I do use Perplexity and ChatGPT research for, doing a lot of schema markup and things like that, because I'm always trying different types of schema types, and always learning more and more about how much better I can do schema. But really, Claude is like that warm blanket. He's like that that friend who just always knows what you're thinking and what you're trying to get at if maybe you can't communicate properly.
Yeah.
I just love it.
I will say it's been interesting. One of the things that I try to tell people is that like LLMs they're kind of like these advanced slot machines. And so they're so probabilistic, like so dependent on probability and chance that you are going to get something different every time. And what that means is that you don't really see how good a model is until you're doing things repeatedly. You're doing things at a little bit more scale and you can see, okay, yeah, I got a good response, but can I get a good response 10 times in a row? And this is one of the powers of the new MetaMonster UI is because it's styled like a spreadsheet, you can see the prompt happening 10 times in a row and see the response. And I gotta say, it's surprised me, but the model I find myself reaching for the most often is just 4.0, ChatGPT 4.0. It's like, it's a workhorse. It is just, it's not, I prefer Claude for writing. I prefer Claude for doing like my own personal, like kind of back and forth. But for just like cranking stuff out and being able to throw kind of anything at it and feel like I'll probably get something pretty close, pretty dependable, 4.0 is a workhorse. Even some of their newer models that can be incredible in certain circumstances, like 4.0 is the one I start with. And then I go, okay, where can I optimize here? Which is interesting.
But again, it all takes, personal intervention because they hallucinate so much. I find Claude hallucinates less than the others, but I could be wrong. But I do use ChatGPT quite a bit, and it does hallucinate quite a bit, and it definitely requires intervention. So all these people that are saying, I'm going to replace all my employees with AI, no,
No, I don't.
You're not.
I've never looked at AI as something that we should be trying to use to replace us. It's like, let's take the work we don't want to do off our plates. Let's free us up to do the more interesting stuff. Humans are still like, I don't want humans to go away. I like humans most of the time. But I have ADHD. And AI helps me get over the blank page problem. It helps me get started on things so much faster. And so I feel like in some ways I can be a better version of myself because I can get unstuck, I can get unblocked, and I can just get started. And I've always felt like I'm in some ways a better editor than I am a writer. And so it's like, all right, cool. I can now, sometimes I need to see the bad thing to know what I wanted in actuality. And so, yeah, I look at this as, superpowers, not replacements.
Right. Well, you've spent a ton of time now educating yourself about LLMs and injecting all of your learnings into MetaMonster. What's next for MetaMonster? What can we expect in the rest of the year?
Yeah. Truthfully, we're still so early that I don't know. I wish I did. We are going to be rolling out this new UI, this new interface in the next couple of weeks here. You have early access to it. A couple of other people do. So we're trying to get some feedback, figure out where the rough edges are and get those polished up. But we're going to be rolling this out and it's just going to open MetaMonster way up. So now instead of just like click button, get titles and descriptions, now it's going to be a space where you can come and you can generate descriptions, schema, image alt text, look for internal links, internal link opportunities. And, we're going to be able to make the product better by using the product, which I'm so excited for. I can go in and test prompt templates in MetaMonster. And then when I've got them working the way I want, I can release them to everyone. And so we're just going to be able to move a lot faster and be a lot more adaptable, which I'm really excited about. And so, yeah, really, my hope is that we'll find the people who jive with what we're doing and look at things the way that we do and who are excited to get in and experiment with this technology and a little bit more structure and some good tooling to help them do that. And together we'll be able to build something that saves people a lot of time and helps people navigate these crazy, turbulent, AEO, whatever you want to call it, times.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with me. I really appreciate it. I have, I'm beat the drum every single day. You just, avoid an emergency, plan ahead, use all the tools that you possibly can to improve the situation for SEO before you get into a crisis. So thank you very much for joining us, Andrew. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, Margaret. I always love talking to you.
Cheers.
Cheers.